So good afternoon, everyone. I am Pat Whitlow. I'm the Director of Nationally Competitive Awards, and I've seen a few names out there that I recognize, so I appreciate that. We are going to talk today about the German Academic Exchange Service Researchship in Science and Engineering. And so in German, that is DAAD, and they would pronounce it with a very different accent. So someone who has better German than I can actually do that. And the acronym is RISE. So they have both an undergraduate program, and then they also have a professional program for if we have any graduate students or people who think they want to do this after they start their career. There are multiple entry points. But Kira was one of our undergraduate students who did it a couple of summers ago, and we have had several UK students who do this. It's not a completely new program to us. So, but she's going to talk about her specific experience. And I do want to, before we get into talking about the specifics of this program, I see that my colleague Olivia Ellis from Education Abroad is on the screen. And she is going to talk briefly. Sometimes when you get an award like this, a particular award that can take you for education abroad, there are sometimes a couple of different options that you can use that are governed through the Education Abroad program. And she's going to talk briefly about that before we go back to talking about the specifics of how you apply. So Olivia, can I turn it over to you for a couple minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Pat introduced me, I'm Olivia Ellis. I am an advisor in education abroad, and I'm also our scholarships coordinator. Now, I advise for the colleges of engineering, communication and information, design, fine arts, and nursing. So if you are in any of those colleges, you'll work directly with me in our office. But if you're at a different college, we do have an advisor for each college. You can find that information on our website. You can just Google UKY Education Abroad or the International Center. It's pretty easy to find. But the main reason I'm here today is because any program that you would go on, whether it's this program in Germany or any of our other study abroad or intern abroad, research abroad opportunities, if you want to earn academic credit for those, you will have to work with our office to register your travel, to make sure we help you get the right course equations, and you'd have access to more scholarships and funding. So I'm here just as that spokesperson to say, if this is something that really interests you and you're also wanting to earn academic credit for it, let us know and we'll help guide you through that process, and we'll make it as painless as possible so that you can use this award, you can study intern research abroad, and you'd have access to other UK scholarships. So my name's Olivia. I'm going to put my email in chat, and I'll also put the link to our website so that you can go on and find your advisor if that's not me. Okay, that's all I got for you. And I'll be around as well if there are any questions that pop up that might be more education abroad related than Chelgren, but I'll be around to help out where needed.
Thank you, Olivia. And I should also mention to all of you, I'll monitor the chat box if you want to put a question in the chat box as we go along. We will also have time at the end for questions. And I also think at this point, we're still, although I see the numbers are going up a little bit, but we're still a relatively small group. So, you know, it may be that you can ask your question as we go through. Would you be okay with that? Kira, okay. Usually these are fairly flexible, that it's okay as we're moving from one slide to another that a student can unmute and get a question in. And I do want you to get as much information as you can today, because I think this is a wonderful program, and you have plenty of time to get an application ready. And we have people on campus that can advise you. I will say quickly before I completely turn it, I will probably insert here and there. She knows me, so she'll be okay. But I do want to mention that this is one of those students where you do a direct application. So you do not have to go through Nationally Competitive Awards office at all. However, I can read for you. I am happy to give suggestions. I would be happy to answer questions. So I'm delighted for you to use the services of my office. And for any of you that do choose to apply, I would like to be aware of your application so that we can follow up with you. But please also know, that you can apply directly. The application deadline, and we will talk about that a little bit later, but it is after the semester has ended. But I will still be here working that week prior, so I can still be available to you. But you do want to plan your time based on that, because technically the applications are due December 15th. And so that is after you will have left campus, gone home, and even completed your finals. So you don't want to let that slip away from you. Well, I'm trying to screen share. Ah, there we go. Just a little slow. So some of you may know Kira. I don't actually know the majors of everyone who's on the call, but she's going to be graduating, in the spring. And
December.
In December. Oh,
yes,
okay, that's right. Actually, I knew that. I started to say that, and then I corrected myself for May. But she's graduating in December. Congratulations to her. And she's in the Department of Computer Science. She's done a lot of stuff on campus, some of which you may talk about in the course of this presentation. But for today, what she's going to talk about is the summer that she spent in Germany doing research on her project. And we are going to talk about some of the specifics of the application, but then I'm also going to let Kira talk about what it was like to be in Germany and all of the things that she experienced and learned there, because I know that's what you are most interested in. I will just make you aware that this is the website, and this is the basic description. I just wanted you to have that. And I thought I had put in the issue around language, and in case I didn't do that, you do not have to be a German speaker to participate in this program. Kira, did you speak German when you went?
I spoke zero German, none at all.
So there you go. So don't be afraid. You can do that. And then here are some of the criteria. Oh, here's where I put the German language at the bottom here. I will pause here for a few seconds to let you read it, but I don't know if there are any comments that you specifically wanted to make on this, Kira, that...
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that this definitely the biggest point is that you do not have to speak German. As I mentioned, I spoke absolutely no German, and if you're selected for the program, they often offer classes for free that you can take 2-week German immersion. I didn't take part in that, but I know it's something that a lot of DAAD scholars actually take part of and really enjoy. So definitely don't be afraid to apply if you don't speak German. Also, I would say that one of the real benefits of this program is that they have mentioned here biology, chemistry, computer science, etc. But they actually drill down even further to subsections within the field. So as Dr. Whitlow mentioned, I'm a computer science major, but I have a real interest in human-computer interaction. And they even had a subsection of several research projects just in that kind of niche area of computer science. So definitely, if you have, you can apply to a lot of general interests, but if you have a specific research interest that you want to explore, this is a really great program for that as well.
And unlike some other programs that you may have learned about from me or other faculty that would require you, that are not as accepting of pre-med students because they're looking at people who want to pursue research science careers, while this is specifically a research program, they are open to pre-med students. And we have had several of our pre-med majors go on this program and get some research experience. And so it is not limited in terms of your postgraduate career plans. So here are the deadlines. I will let everybody take a screenshot of that. So it's it's been open a few days for you to be able to go and look at all the different opportunities available. And then there is your deadline. And please note that that is Central European time. So what is that, Kira, in US time? I should have figured it out before we got on the PowerPoint, but I didn't.
I believe it's 6 hours difference.
So please be careful and don't get confused here. This is something you would really want to note and put in your phone or on your calendar, because if you submit late, I don't think they're very forgiving about accepting that. So you want to submit a little early, maybe the day before if possible. And you want to make sure your faculty also know. And since you will also be on break, they will be on break during the time you would submit. I would strongly encourage you to talk to your faculty this month before you leave campus about your need for a letter, as opposed to waiting until you get home and emailing. Any other comments or questions? I don't see anything. Oh, there is a comment in the chat. Oh, these are Olivia's comments in the chat. Okay. So Kira, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to start with like, why should you be interested in applying? Obviously, you all are here because you have some interest in the program. But I know that when I was applying, it was almost like a thought to me of like, I just want to try something different, but I didn't really know kind of what the benefits of the program would be. So a big one is gaining international research experience. If you don't have a lot of research experience, this can be a great way to gain some. If you do have some research experience on campus, but you want to try a different field, or like I said, you want to distill down into a really specific research interest, this is a great opportunity for that. And also it can be a great test run of doing grad school overseas. So as many people know, grad school can be expensive here in the US, and it is a lot cheaper in places like Germany, the UK, France, etc. So if you have ever thought about doing grad school overseas, this is a really great way to not only get to know the different universities in Germany, get to know kind of what a research experience might be like if you're doing a master's or a PhD, but also you can kind of explore what research interests you have. So let's say you're interested in doing biology, but you're not quite sure what you would want to do a thesis on. This is a really great way to make connections, if not at the lab that you intern with, but with people all across the country. Because another benefit of this program is that you actually get to meet with over a weekend every single one of the DAAD scholars, and you get to network with them and hear about their research. So that's a really great networking and informational opportunity. That leads into my next point, which is you can give presentations and get published. I had the opportunity to give my presentation in front of all 300 DAAD scholars in Germany about the research I was doing there. And that was at the annual meetup of all the scholars, and the professional scholars are there as well, which is another great networking opportunity. And also another DAAD scholar that I worked with who was in my lab, she actually got her work published, and she won the Honorable Mention Award for Best Student Paper at the ACM for Human Computer Interaction Conference, which is, if you're not in computer science, it's a really big deal. So there's a lot of opportunity there to really grow and also get published and give really valuable presentations. You can also collaborate with students across the globe. This is not just an award for people in the US, it's also for people in Canada, Ireland, and the UK. So you can get the opportunity to meet a lot of people around the world, which is also great. And also, which is the main reason I actually applied, is to try something out of my comfort zone. This is probably to date the biggest learning moment I've had in my educational career. It really pushed me outside of my boundaries. I was really only used to doing local internships in or around Kentucky, and to get to go to Germany and understand what it's like to do research there absolutely changed how I viewed not only my future, but also the education as I'm going through it right now. Yeah, so on the next slide, I kind of show what happened while I was there, and I'll talk a little bit about my experience. Yeah, so for me, what the DAAD experience was a lot of these things and a lot of combination of things that I previously mentioned. First and foremost, it was a really great way to explore human-computer interaction, to explore the newest technology. So you can see on the image on the very left, that is me with VR, virtual reality technology, which is very expensive and I could not afford on my own. So it was a really, really great opportunity to learn this new technology, something I could put on my resume. And it still is something I get asked about in almost every interview I do. So it's a really great opportunity to work with cutting edge technology. And actually, that photo was taken in my lab. And my lab was a really great experience. And you could see that all the people in the image on the very right were every single person who worked in my lab. We were all undergraduate students. So there were a couple people that were part of a National Science Foundation grant. There were a couple people that were part of the Erasmus program for European students. And then there was myself and another RISE scholar. So it was a really great way to collaborate. We exchanged ideas beyond just the bounds of our own project. And some other cool things that I got to do included the meetup that I mentioned of all RISE scholars and all professional scholars, which can be seen in the bottom left picture and the middle picture. So in the middle picture, I am presenting on my research in which I got to present for all scholars. And my research, let me give you a little bit of synopsis of it was. I worked on a project called Overcoming Roadblocks, which was using virtual and augmented reality to help people with age-related macular degeneration more safely cross the street. So people with age-related macular degeneration lose sight in the center of their vision, but they retain their peripheral vision. But as if you have ever tried to see out of your peripheral vision, you know that you lose a lot of visual acuity, and it can be difficult to see things moving quickly like cars. So what I got to work on was virtual and augmented reality, as you can see in that picture, to try and better improve the sphere of warning signs, safety critical systems, things like that, that can be hopefully integrated in technology in the future where you're wearing a pair of smart glasses to identify when a car is coming and alert you so there are less fatal traffic accidents. So getting to present that was a really great experience. And then afterwards at the RISE meetup, we actually had a little celebration because it was the celebration of 15 years of the program. So I even got to cut the American cake, which was pretty fun. And then the last thing I got to do was travel. Germany and Munich specifically is a great location within Europe to travel by train. So in the image in the bottom right, I'm actually at the Swiss Alps in Interlaken, Switzerland, which is just a really, really cool experience to not only experience a new country in your day-to-day, but also have the ability to travel around. So on the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about what the application looks like so you can also have the opportunity to do these things. So like any award, you're going to have information, just general information about you, your background, your history, and your transcripts. You'll also provide a CV and a headshot. So German CVs, the reason you provide a headshot is because in Germany, CVs almost always come with a picture of yourself. So that's just standard. And the CV, don't let the name scare you. It is somewhat academically related, but they want a 1 to 2 page resume essentially. So don't let that freak you out too much. It really is a basic showing the applicants what your skills are. I'll talk a little bit about that later about what kind of skills you should include there. Then you're going to provide 3 essentially cover letters to PhD students. So the way this application works is there are a list of projects that you can apply to. So PhD students across Germany say, okay, I would like to host an undergraduate student from another country. This is my project, and these are the things I expect a research assistant to do. You'll read through each of these descriptions. When you find one you like, you will then provide essentially a cover letter explaining why you want to work with them, what skills you have that will match well to that project, in a similar fashion to what you would do for a cover letter for a job. And that is really the most personal part of your application. And in my opinion, I believe it is what really has the most sway because you're really talking directly to the person that would be your mentor. You'll also have a certification of enrollment at UK. This is something I would get on right away because it does require you to fill out a form, print it out, and then get it embossed by the registrar. So I would definitely do that. If you're planning on leaving Lexington by the end of the semester, I would definitely get on that. I kind of put it off to the last minute, so a friendly word of advice. And then finally, you'll need some recommendation letters. And then I'll go into a little bit more detail about how you do this application in the next slide.
And can I make one comment about the headshot? If there are any of you on the call you don't have a professional headshot, we can do that for you in the Chelgren Center. We have the lighting and a good camera, and it would be no charge to you. So we can help you get a good professional headshot if you need help.
So the RISE website is a little bit confusing, and it still is confusing to me, even though I have navigated it for over a year now. So don't feel stressed. I'm going to walk you through how to do it. And Dr. Whitlow is recording this, so you can come back later. And also, as you're on the website, go through this. So when you first get to the website, go ahead.
Carrie, you've had someone raise their hand.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes.
Well, I just saw it. So if you want to unmute Landon and ask your question.
Yeah, totally. So I had a couple questions about the possibility of doing this project. I am about to graduate in the spring.
Okay.
And I was wondering if it's a possibility to do it afterwards.
After
I graduate.
I'm unsure. Dr. Whitlow, do you know?
I am not completely sure. I will have to check that for you. I do not think so, because I think if you were allowed to do that, I would know that, because I know of some of the other ones. So, but I'm not completely positive, and they could have changed it. So I will be happy to research that for you after.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and if this doesn't work out, somebody within my lab applied directly to that lab through the National Science Foundation, and they had already graduated. So definitely check that out as well. The people in my group were through New Hampshire University through the National Science Foundation. So definitely.
And it may be that the RISE program offers it for postgraduate as long as you're in a master's or a PhD program. They might require that you're enrolled somewhere, because that's how a lot of German scientific-based internships or study abroad programs are, is you have to be enrolled in credit somewhere to be a part of the program.
Okay, gotcha. And I feel like, so this might be a different question going on in a different place, but like, if I applied through the National Science Foundation, could I extend it through probably past the summer? Or is it possible to get more involved with the university?
Absolutely. Once you make that connection with the lab, that's totally up to them. You know, the funding would be a different story. Maybe they would have to fund you. But definitely, from my experience, the lab was like, if you ever want to come back and do a master's, we would be more than happy to try and start that process with you. Because you really do develop that personal relationship. So
cool.
Yeah.
Just make sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when you're starting the application, the first thing that you want to do, as I mentioned, you kind of apply almost directly to the internship positions. So you want to find those 3 positions that are most interesting to you. So what you want to do is click on the Find an Internship, and then that'll lead you to this page that's very confusing. And if you have not yet registered or you want to log into your portal, you'll need to click on the application portal. And then that leads you to the next slide.
Sorry, these are a little slow.
You are fine. It is all good.
Does not want to move. There we go.
Yeah, so then on the next slide, you're going to want to like scroll down quite a bit. And then you'll see the RISE Germany internship database. That's where you can register or log in. You'll need to register to see any internship postings, which is a little weird, but just as a note, you'll need to do that before you can see any of the internships. And it's okay if you decide like you don't want to go through that application process. It's still beneficial. Oh my goodness, now it's moving on.
Well, now it wants to go everywhere.
There we go.
Right.
So then once you log in and get an account, there'll be a button that says Find Your Internship Now. You'll click on that, and that'll lead you to the directory of all of them, where it'll have a little drop down where you can select your area of interest and then your sub area of interest. So the image on the left here is an example of, there was a posting. I clicked on it, and this is what comes up. This is probably the most important thing. I would review, once you find the internships you like, I would review this continually, because it is your holy grail of what you want to put your application forward. So actually, this is the internship that I completed, and it is open this year. So if my work interested you, you might want to take note of this. It's with the grad student I worked with and everything, which I thought was really fun. So there are a couple of things that are really important here to note. The first is the location, both the city and the university. So like cities in the US, there are many universities in a given city. So it's, if the university matters to you and you're thinking about going to there for grad school, definitely take note of that. You should note any special requirements. So in this particular posting, it says Unity 3D and C#. So you should not only mention this in your CV, if you have those skills, you should also mention this in your cover letter. So for example, I had Unity and C# experience when I applied. So I mentioned in my cover letter how I learned those skills and what project I worked on. And I put that at the very top because this is something that is really important to them, and it is vital for you as a day-to-day researcher. So it definitely puts you at the top of their list if you have these skills. If you don't, that's okay. I would definitely still in the cover letter explain how you have gained similar skills and done similar projects. Also, there's a PDF linked here. So any PDFs or websites about the research, those are also vital. The PDF that has been placed here gives a 3-page long explanation of why they created this project, why it's important to them, any grants related, and the skills that they expect a student working in this position to have. So that is also a really great reference to make your CV based on, to make your cover letter based on. Definitely hit all these points, because the more that you can light up, the more interesting your application looks. Also, it has an estimated cost of housing. This is important for one main reason. If you are awarded this RISE award, it comes with a stipend based on the average cost of housing in Germany. So if you live in a very expensive city like Munich or Berlin or Hamburg, that may or may not cover the cost of housing. So definitely, if you want this to be an all expenses paid trip, I would suggest potentially making sure that that estimated cost of housing fits within that range of the stipend. It ranges wildly. There are small towns in Germany, there are large cities. So definitely take note of that if that is something that is important to you. And then finally, take note of, once again, any other relevant information for your cover letter. For example, this says that the contact is Mr. Florian Lang, and it has his address for the lab. So definitely put that at the top of your cover letter, personalize it as much as possible, because once again, that just makes your application stand out even more. So a couple tips. Once again, tailor your CV and cover letters to the special requirements and research tasks. I cannot stress this enough. When I asked the lab, what kind of made me stand out to them, they said it was your Unity experience, your experience with C#, which were exactly the little special requirements that they had written in that posting. So definitely pay attention to that. Obviously, these are things that are relevant to computer science majors, but if you're in something like biology and you have experience with, let's say, a skill of pipetting, no matter how small the skill is, go ahead and put it in there if you find it relevant to the position, because they're looking for people that already have some basis of skill that they can continue to hone and grow in their own research inquiries. Again, beware of the location. So location has a couple trade-offs. The level of English will vary based on the location. It will never vary in your workplace. So every single workplace has a working language of English. But once you go outside in your day-to-day, when you're going shopping, when you're in town, if you're in a smaller town in Germany, there's a much less likely chance that your average person will speak English fluently. Where I was in Munich, almost every single person spoke English, and they took one look at me and started speaking English to me. So they definitely a wildly different experience depending on where you are. Also be aware, again, like I said, of cost of living. If you're in a smaller town, your cost will most likely be covered. If you're in a place like Munich, might be a little bit more difficult because housing prices are so high. Food prices and travel prices are really low in Germany, so don't worry about that. But housing prices can be a little steep in the big cities, like big cities in the US. On the next slide, I have a couple more tips. Yeah. So I would say make your application reflect your skills, knowledge, and experience. So most German researchers won't know local company names here. You can include them on your CV, that's fine. But I would say the most important thing is, let's say you have an internship at GE Appliances like I did. It's less important to say, GE Appliances worked on insert jargony thing here. It's more important to say, while I was at GE Appliances, I worked on vendor management. I, worked on making the user interface friendly for other people. And use terms that, unless are directly relevant and directly mentioned in that PDF, use them as friendly to the reader as possible. Again, English is probably the second or third language for a lot of these people, so definitely make it accessible to everyone reading it. And also have your recommenders paint a picture of you as a learner, adapter, and explorer. Obviously, don't have them write anything that's not true of you, but if you could ask them to highlight qualities that show you are a person who can be mentored, a person who can grow and adapt well to a brand new environment, that's really great because they want to invest in sending people to Germany that they know will flourish in an uncertain environment. They've perhaps never been there before, perhaps never even been in a research position for. So they're looking for people that they know will grow rather than, you know, kind of shrink and be a little nervous or scared in a new position. Which we were all nervous, but you know, it's always good to show that you can be a learner. So that's kind of all I have to say for me blabbering at you, but I would love to take individual questions and see, you know, what questions you have about the application or anything you're nervous about. And I included this specific picture because in Munich, at least, it is very hot in the summer. And when it is very hot, everyone goes to get ice cream. So every single meeting at the end of the day would finish with, why don't we go get some ice cream? So I wanted to leave you with that tradition. So yeah, please ask me any questions you have in the chat, or you can just unmute.
Hey, so is this purely research or do you get paid to do the work as well?
That's a great question. So you receive a general stipend. So you are not paid hourly or salaried. It is just a stipend. That stipend is paid out monthly to you, and doesn't really have to do with the quality of your work, though you should do a good quality of work. And your research institution does not fund you. It is the German Academic Exchange Service. So it's fully through them.
Okay, so it's like if you find a place of housing that's within the stipend, it's more like kind of all expenses paid versus
Yeah, absolutely.
okay. I just wanted to be clear on that because, you know, with internships and co-ops, it's like internships can be either paid or unpaid.
Exactly.
And then also something that I just realized is I have an emotional support dog.
Mhm.
So would I be able to take him with me if I did that program?
Yeah, so that definitely is I think you would probably know more about that based on the program. I don't have any experience with that. I think, so actually when I was in Germany, in Munich, I stayed in an Airbnb accommodation. Some locations have college-based housing, dormitory housing. I think it would definitely be a case-by-case basis. I'm sorry, I can't provide more information on that.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
On other study, research, intern, abroad programs, if there's a student who has an emotional support animal, it really depends on the country and the place that you might be staying or working. In many cases, it'll turn out that you'll have to ask the place that you're working, especially if you wanted to come to work with you. But they may request kind of I'm putting it kind of blandly because I don't know exactly what they might call it, like proof of necessity, proof of need. And that might require you to reach out to the DRC here at UK, who can provide a letter to say, yes, this student does require these services.
Yeah, since my emotional support animal's with me on campus right now, all that paperwork and all those letters are already kind of good.
So
So
they
it'd be
don't
just seeing, I guess, what Germany's laws would be, because I know in the US that
exactly.
if you can show that, they have to be able to let you have an animal with you. So I would guess I just have to research if Germany's the same or if I could find enough reasonable options, because it would just be a housing thing. My animal does not come to work with me or anything. So
Yeah, exactly. That's it head on. Is you just have to make sure you understand the rules and expectations of Germany. And then if I remember right from my past research on Germany is I believe it is not a country that requires animals to be held and like quarantined before you can get them back. Whereas like some some countries, they do require your dog be held separately.
Yeah,
from-
like Australia.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly. So I don't think Germany requires that, but those are some questions that you should be able to Google and find the answers to. And that, yeah, it would be all up to your housing at that point.
Awesome. Thank you.
I wanted to ask just more quickly, Kira, have you explained in the your flight was not covered separately. Is that correct? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So I believe I'd have to look this up because I haven't looked it up recently. I believe the flight was covered up to a certain extent. It was just that once again, it was like maybe didn't cover the whole cost. But yeah, so I will say the one thing about this program is they definitely see you as an independent human being. So you will book your own flight. More often than not, you'll book your own accommodation, and they'll wire you the funds to repay you for doing so. If you need, like, I don't want to scare anyone away. If you do need like the money in advance, they're definitely willing to help you work that out. It's just they're a German-based organization, so they require you have a German bank account. But you can definitely, I know everyone's mentor that I spoke to was super accommodating and helping get them set up remotely from the US, getting a German bank account. So there's a lot of logistics involved in that. But definitely don't be scared away by those aspects. I'm sure there are lots of people in education abroad or even just like past alumni like me who would love to help kind of help you navigate some of the more complex parts of that process.
And we did have one of our RISE interns a few years ago that the flight happened to be quite expensive. I think he was notified late or something. He might have been an alternate, and they were not covering the full cost of it, and he did not have. And so my office did help defray the cost of that the extra cost for the flight for that student. So if there is a situation like that, I would hope that you would not allow a few $100s to maybe keep you from an opportunity like this, and that you would reach out to me. Sometimes I have some extra money at my budget at that time of year and I can assist.
Yeah, are there any other questions about anything at all? The process, even.
I do not see any questions in the chat box, but you're welcome to unmute yourself.
Yeah, here's one. How many recommendation letters are required for the application? I don't know. I can actually check. Let me see. I have the website pulled up right here. Let's see.
I think it's 2. I thought it was 2.
I also believe that it is 2. I applied in 2018 and was a 2019 scholar, so it totally could change, but I believe when I applied it was 2. And we can get you confirmation on that. No problem. Any other questions?
How did you go about like choosing your recommendation people? Like, was it your like lab PI or something like that, or was it like just a professor that you like super liked?
Yeah. So both of my recommenders were previous PIs that I had, direct mentors of my research. But I will say I probably had like an abnormal amount of research experience because I was also a researcher in high school. But that is definitely don't by any means think that that's like a standard. I would say pick people, if you have had research experience, definitely pick your PI. If your PI is not available, pick someone who mentored you on a day-to-day basis and has an understanding of how you think and how you work in a research lab setting. If you don't have that experience, pick anyone who's mentored you perhaps on a in-depth project. Maybe you've already taken your GCSE capstone and your professor had kind of a lot of oversight on that project you did in class, maybe. Anyone who you think could have a good insight to your research process, how you think, how you learn, how you adapt. Yeah.
And when you say anyone, let me clarify that. I think
Yes.
it's anyone in the fields related to what you're hoping to do. An academic advisor is probably not the best choice for this type of award. So maybe they haven't been your research mentor, but maybe they've taught you in a class that's very important to your field or connect. I don't think you want, like the person who's supervising you when you tutored at the study or something. That's not my understanding of what they're looking for, right? So I do think you want to, yeah. it may be somebody who knows you well, but doesn't know anything about your field. And in this particular case, I think they're looking to know more specifically the skill set that you would bring, and why you particularly, are in that field more than they are just about your general goodness as a human being.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely more technical oriented. I believe they have to answer a questionnaire a little bit about your skills and your background. But again, anyone who has taught you, has worked with you in a lab setting, has worked with you in a project setting in a like an authority capacity, a PhD student, a master's student, someone like that, would definitely be appropriate.
Thank you.
I had a question. What do you think, at what time in your undergraduate experience do you think would be the best time to do this internship?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe the program is geared towards sophomores and juniors. I did it as a junior, and I would say that probably a majority, I believe when they do the selection process, they preference juniors because they're about to graduate out of the program. If they find that a sophomore, is kind of on the borderline and they could have more experience to grow, they'll encourage you to apply next year. But that doesn't mean that sophomores don't get it. They definitely do.
Were you a junior by hours, Kira, or by
I was by year.
Okay.
It was my third year in college. Yeah. So I was like by hours a senior. So definitely.
And you can apply both. I would say to students, you are not penalized if you applied 1 year and did not receive it. You can apply again. Mm-hmm. So I would say to students, apply at all the times you're eligible if this is something you're interested, because you may not get it as a sophomore, but you will learn from the process. And if you do get it, then that's a wonderful opportunity. And I think you are allowed to apply again. I believe there are students who have been able to do it 2 summers in a row.
Yes, yeah, if that is something that is possible, you can definitely return, which is a great opportunity. Also, I would recommend, obviously things are different with COVID. I know a lot of people, especially in STEM fields, kind of lost their internships for the summer. But if you feel like you're in a situation where normally you'd be taking an internship, normally you would be taking a co-op, I would definitely consider taking this program. What I did, I applied for internships and applied for this at the same time. And then when I got notified that I was a RISE scholar, I took the scholarship and then asked to move to fall co-ops for the people that I was in talks with for internships. And that's actually, so in 2019, I went to Germany over the summer. I came back and then I did a fall co-op at Google. So I would say, don't feel like you're locked in at your educational career at this point. I definitely felt like, oh yeah, I'm going to graduate in 4 years. And I ended up having some really great experiences by opening myself up to the opportunity, the potential of doing this over the summer, getting some great research experience, and then getting some great job experience in the fall.
Kira, did you actually start at the start date as specified on the website?
No, I did not. So I actually had a conflict. I was going on a research trip with my lab, and they were very accommodating. At that point, once you've accepted the program, you work directly with your PhD student, your mentor. And I basically negotiated with him. I was like, hey, I'm on this other trip. And he was like, oh, absolutely no problem. You just need to report that to the RISE scholarship and they'll, decrease your stipend, prorate it based on how many weeks you're actually spending in Germany. But the process was very easy and they were all very accommodating about it.
But that can vary by lab.
Yes.
And so it is very important. You have to negotiate with your specific PI. There might be reasons why they need you to start at the start time stated. It may be that they want you for the full 8 weeks. And if you start later, then you'll be late for restarting your next academic year. So it is something, don't make any assumptions on that. If you get the offer, start nailing down those details very early, because they can probably be more flexible with you as long as they know from the very beginning, as opposed to shortly before you plan to arrive. Or
yes, and definitely review all that information in the PDF, all the information on the posting. I believe that my specific posting had a required 10 to 14 weeks. I had to be there a minimum of 10 weeks, could be there a maximum of 14 weeks. So definitely pay attention to that information. You don't want to be like accepting the position and can only be there for 8 weeks. So
And did you already have your passport when you applied, or did you do that after?
I did, but I know that there's ample information and ample reminders on doing so once you receive the award. But you know, with everything the way it is, if this is something you're seriously considering with education abroad, I would definitely start the passport process. If you're really gung-ho, you're like, no matter what, I really want to go overseas at some point, I would definitely recommend trying to start that process. And they're also very accommodating with, I know some people wanted to extend their visas. I was there on just a basic visitor visa in the EU. But if you want to be there for an extended amount of time, the RISE program was super helpful in helping you do the necessary paperwork to extend it.
Just one more quick thing. Where will we be able to access this recording so that we can, you know, look back through how to apply and all that? Will it be emailed to us, or is it going to be posted somewhere? Or
I
where
will
we
post
find
it on the Nationally Competitive Awards website, and also on our Facebook. And I don't know, it'll come to me sometime tonight as an email from the cloud, and we'll post it tomorrow. We should be able to get it up tomorrow.
And if you have any questions, you can obviously email Dr. Whitlow and email Olivia, but if you also want to email me, mine is klsievers, my last name, 00@gmail. So feel free to send things my way and I can help you troubleshoot. As I'm graduating in December, you know, I'll have a couple days after December 4th that I'll be free. So any other questions? I do want to make something a little more clear. I don't think I specified this super great. So when you are applying to the lab, you're applying to work with a PhD student. That PhD student is often using this research to help further their doctoral thesis, or their postdoc that they report to is just interested in exploring a new area. So oftentimes you're taking part of this really cutting edge research that will either help further someone's PhD, so you're working really close in conjunction with them, or you know, you're working on something that will continue to be a project for in future years, which was the case with mine.
I had another question. I know you said you had a lot of research experience before applying. What was like the general amount of research experience that people in your program had?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had people range from no research experience to someone who was completing a PhD in my lab. So a wide range. I would say the average is probably you've had either a class with a major research project or you've worked in a lab before, just because it proves that you have those skills. But if you have another way of proving that, you know, you have an analytical mind, you've done a project before, anything like that, definitely include it, because I think it definitely helps. And the evaluation process, I should also be specific on this. The evaluation process, initially you go through the RISE program, they whittle down to X number of people they think would be qualified. Then they send your application to each of the PhD students that you applied to. The PhD students will then rank you in order of, like they get sent, let's say 10 applications, they rank 1 through 10 who they want. They come back, they do a matching process, and then they'll offer you, they'll say, congratulations, Kira Sievers, you were matched with Dr. or Florian Lang. You know, would you like to proceed forward? And then both parties agree, and then you move forward. So it is a 2-step process. So I would say if you can prove those skills, you'll make it through the initial filtering round, and then your cover letter is really what speaks and shines for your application from that point on.
And there is not an interview process in the midst of this 2-stage. So I would give the advice for all of you that you be very specific in your cover letter. This is not the time, you know, so for sort of general introductory information, you don't have probably a lot of space for that. So I would be very, very specific about your skill set. But I think you can speak also prospectively to things that you're going to be learning in the spring term. So if you were going to be taking a course that is very, very relevant to the description, you could talk about that. If you were starting research in a lab that did something very similar, even if you hadn't started, you know, because this application is going to be due in December, but you've already arranged with a faculty member to start in January, I think you could mention that. You obviously don't know exactly what results you would get out of that. But so think about your experience, you know, the 6 months before you would go on this, what would you have gained? And if there are some things that you know you're going to do that are very, very relevant, I think you can mention those.
Yes, and
Well, but be specific.
yes, something I forgot to mention is that along with your general information / transcript material, it'll ask you to explain courses of impact or courses of importance within your major, because obviously course titles don't match when you're going over to Germany. So definitely be specific there. Instead of saying I took algorithms, explain, you know, in this course we learned, you know, minimax algorithm, we learned A*, like things that only makes sense if you're in computer science, but definitely be specific. Say, like if you're in a human anatomy class, explain all the different units you did as concisely as possible, because sometimes concepts don't translate as well as we would want them to. But if you're specific about the skills and things you learned in those classes, that helps a lot.
Other questions?
Could a skill be that that I speak German, like I can speak it?
Oh yeah, yes. I don't think
Okay.
it certainly won't discount you. I think it'll definitely be interesting to them. I know somebody in my particular lab did speak German, and interestingly, her project was on language acquisition. So that was a really great skill to say, I have learned X number of languages, and I think that that'd be a great skill. So it doesn't
Okay.
hurt, certainly.
Yeah,
We have had students go who had various from 0 to they were studying German here at the institution when they applied. So, and I think they love it when people are studying their language. I mean, it's not, you know,
Yeah.
so I think they're very happy, but I also think they are focused on the technical skills to a greater degree.
Yeah, I get that. Okay.
I'm
But by
also
all means, mention it. Do not hide that.
I'm also assuming
Yeah.
if we have any. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
You're good.
Any
Go ahead.
relevant extracurriculars. So I'm an electrical engineer and I'm on the formula car team. So they've had me do projects for that. So I'd assume that the guy who's kind of in charge would probably be the best person to have write a recommendation letter, because he's assigned me research for our projects and I had to do like a big old final report. And a lot of the practical applications of my skills are through that. So I would assume that that's kind of what I'd really want to lean into, and then just any relevant classwork.
Yes, absolutely. Like anything that, you know, you have done to show those skills that's relevant, go for it. Yeah. Something also just I wanted to mention offhand, sometimes these programs within your lab will, as I mentioned, I collaborated with a lot of other grant awardees from the National Science Foundation, Erasmus, etc. And we also were awarded a grant to go to something called a summer school, which is basically a conference in Germany. So we went to Oldenburg, Germany, and attended something, basically a conference for grad students on safety critical systems. So these aren't things that are advertised, but I also wanted to make the point that you'll do more than just sit in your lab all day. They definitely try to integrate you into what a grad student's life would be like, and kind of almost try and recruit you to come to Germany and do a master's or PhD there. So.
And this can be wonderful preparation if you want to go and do a Fulbright research year after you graduate. So there's lots of, this can be a stepping stone to many other adventures and achievements in your academic career. Other questions that we have not yet answered for you?
I have one. So if we don't get accepted this year, what's something that you would suggest that we try to do in order to prepare for when we reapply?
Yeah, I would say, you know, if you don't have a ton of research experience now, go for it. Like try and connect with a mentor, a professor in your area. You know, if that doesn't work, try and connect with your TAs in your classes that you've really liked. You know, ask kind of what opportunities they did in undergrad or what opportunities they might hear around now as grad students, because they really have an ear to the ground on those things. And if you do have a lot of research experience already, I would say just, you know, maybe it just wasn't the year. Definitely, if you see a posting that you're really interested in, there's a good chance it could be there next year, and you could beef up on those skills that maybe you didn't have. Like, say I didn't know Unity, I could go learn Unity. Next year I apply, I have those special requirements.
Yeah, I would agree with those same things. I would look at your skill set and see if it was particularly relevant to the ones you applied to. They don't give you feedback if you don't receive it. Unfortunately, they don't reach out and tell you why. So, so that can be a little bit hard, but just continuing to build your skill set and your expertise while you're a student here at UK, making sure that you get to know your recommenders well and that they know what your skill set is and that they've written you a good letter. So being able to talk to them about, you know, it's not enough to just say I was a good student in your class, but could you also talk about these particular skills? These are really important in the description. So you may want to give them the description of the particular, the 3 options that you have chosen. But a lot of times it's not that sometimes it's not even that you were lacking, it's competitive, right? And there are a lot of people who apply, you know, with a lot of skill sets. So you just want to make sure that you're continuing to build your background for that kind of research.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And also make sure that you let people read your cover letters, and if you're worried about your writing or you're worried about whether or not you were specific enough, get some help. I mean, somebody's going to read it on the other end. So you might as well get somebody, your mentor, me, somebody to read it for you before you submit it. That can be very, very helpful. And I find that is often a neglected stage.
Just one last little thing. When do we get our results back if we do get chosen? Because obviously over the summer, if I'm not able to make this work or I don't get in, I would be working. And so obviously I'd like to be able to plan around any job applying I would do.
Absolutely. So on the website, it says that the ranking, so the initial kind of screening you go through by the RISE group, that's from January 18th to February 2nd. You'll be notified if you pass that round or if not. And then the announcement of the RISE internship positions is the end of February to mid-March. That's obviously dependent on the matching process. So the quicker that your lab decides on you, the quicker that you'd be notified. I personally was notified the end of February. So, you know, it can go anywhere till mid-March, but it appears that the mid-March is the cutoff.
Great, thank you.
So I have another question. I'm on the website right now and I went to find an internship, and then where do I go after that to like look at what kind of internships they have before I apply?
Yes, okay, so you clicked on find an internship, and then you should go to the application portal. It's the little one above the weird picture of the brain. And then once you're on that page, you should scroll down to where you see a little timer countdown where it says 39 days. And that's where it says the database, and you should register or log in there. And then that, if you see the recording after this, I have a couple of pictures of that process.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem.
Well, I appreciate all of you for coming this afternoon. You've asked great questions, and I'm excited to see the enthusiasm for this program. And thank you so much, Kira, for sharing all of your experience about the program. I would be delighted to help. I know Kira has said she's open to questions as well. So you have resources on campus. I absolutely hope that you will reach out for them. There are also faculty who know about this program as well and might be able to answer questions. So it might not be just the 2 of us. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll try to get this on the website tomorrow so that you have access to it. Thank you.